In 2022, twin Australian YouTube sensations Danny and Michael Philippou, better known then as RackaRacka, emerged as the hot new thing in horror when they started screening their directorial debut, Talk to Me. After being picked up by A24, the movie released in the summer of 2023 to rave reviews from critics and audiences alike, while garnering nearly $100 million at the worldwide box office off of a $4.5 million budget. Now, 2 years later, the duo are back at it again with the release of their sophomore effort, Bring Her Back, which has been receiving similarly high review scores and is now playing in theaters. So, did Danny and Michael hit the sophomore slump, or did they overcome the odds and deliver an even better follow-up feature? Let's find out. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today I have a brand new versus video for you all, and it is going to be Bring Her Back versus Talk to Me. For those of you unfamiliar with how I do these types of videos, it's simple. I will be comparing these two movies across 9 rounds to determine just one winner. Each round is timestamped, so if some categories interest you more than others, feel free to skip around. Before I hop into the actual video itself, I just wanted to let you all know that I have an entire playlist dedicated to all of my versus videos. And there are plenty in that playlist for you to enjoy, from movie versus movie, character versus character, or even franchise versus franchise, and a few more. So if versus videos are your thing, then be sure to check that out, and I guarantee you'll find something you like. And if by some chance you don't, then please feel free to suggest something you might like. And so without further ado, let's hop right into things. In round 1, we're going to be looking at the plot. So in this round, we look at the base plot of the movie and nothing more. What is the hook to get people into theaters or to click on the poster after reading the brief description while browsing your favorite streaming service? Everywhere you look, the plot description for Bring Her Back is purposefully left short and simple, as the movie's mystery plays a big role in its intrigue. The story follows a brother and sister who uncover a terrifying ritual being enacted at the secluded home of their new foster mother. While the plot summary for Talk to Me is more straightforward, and in a lot of ways, well, what you read is basically what you get. We follow a group of friends, primarily Mia, as they discover how to conjure spirits using an embalmed hand. Soon they become hooked on this new thrill until one of them goes too far and unleashes terrifying supernatural forces. Depending on who you ask, they will either like how vague the description for Bring Her Back is, or might find it frustratingly cryptic or simplistic. Talk to Me sort of spills the beans up front, and for some people, they'll love that. It gives them a good idea of what they're in for right at the door, while others may find it generic or too revealing. Me personally, I'm a big mystery guy, though I think Talk to Me is much better than 95% of horror movies we get these days. Thanks to the performances, themes, and well-executed scares especially, the plot at face value sounds like any other run-of-the-mill supernatural teen horror flick. So since I found myself really engaged by the minimal plot details and cryptic marketing, I'll be going with Bring Her Back for this first round. In round 2, we'll be discussing the storytelling. This storytelling round basically covers everything else related to the story and how it all plays out. I'll talk about pacing, the themes and messages, what the movie is a commentary on, the twists and turns, subversions, the ending/resolution, and anything else I feel is worth mentioning to better help flesh the round out. Fair warning, this is almost always the longest round. Both Bring Her Back and Talk to Me cover very similar themes. Chief among them is grief. Both of these movies are expertly crafted exercises in grief, and since the release of Bring Her Back, the Philippou brothers have publicly stated that they actually wrote both of these movies right around the same time. Besides grief, Bring Her Back touches on the likes of depression, obsession, trauma, guilt, jealousy, loneliness, what it's like for children to lose a parent or parents, and what it's like for a parent to lose a child. It is some seriously heavy shit, and though it may be delivered in a ham-fisted way at times, they definitely get their points across in impactful and lasting ways. The pacing is a bit rougher than Talk to Me, I would say, with this one running about 105 minutes. Not that a movie being longer automatically means it is paced worse than a shorter movie, but this one is a 105-minute movie that probably could have been a 95-minute movie. I could honestly describe Bring Her Back as a dark and twisted rabbit hole. The main elements that provide the mystery are the tapes, which are introduced in the opening of the movie, Ollie, and the circles. Though their mysteries are revealed pretty early on, they're no less messed up after we've clued in on what's going on. Plus, much like with Talk to Me, which I'll discuss in a second, it's not hard to decipher what's going on based on the title of the movie alone. We know someone is going to try to bring someone back. After we meet Piper and Andy and their dad dies, which lands them at Laura's, who recently lost her daughter, it's not that tough to figure out. Talk to Me, on the other hand, God, I wish I had one of those replica hands. Would have made a pretty great gag there, huh? Talk to Me also dabbles with loss, depression, isolation, belonging, addiction, escapism, and peer pressure. But arguably my favorite thing the movie highlights is the current obsession that the youth, yes, I'm calling them the youth, I'm almost 30 now, so I don't consider myself a part of the youth, and their obsession with influencer culture. Everyone in middle, or junior high if you're Canadian, school, or high school, is obsessed with going viral. Everyone wants to be an influencer, or a streamer, or a YouTuber, and far too often do the more superficial among them measure someone else's value in the number of followers they have. I mean, right out of the gate, we follow Cole, who finds his brother Duckett locked in a room during a house party. After he tries to leave with his brother, who is clearly disturbed, he's met by dozens of teens with their phones out recording the two of them leaving. Cole lashes out at them before Duckett stabs him and then himself. It's sudden, violent, and to the point. Throughout both movies, we see our lead characters, the duo of Andy and Piper in Bring Her Back, and then Mia from Talk to Me, suffer the loss of a parent. They struggle with coping, and they just want to belong, often accepting much less than they deserve or going well beyond their comfort zones and veering into outright recklessness just to feel something. In a sense, each of them are lost, but in their own way. They're missing a piece of themselves. Each had different relationships with those parents, and both Andy and Mia actually have visions of these deceased individuals. In an attempt to try and regain something resembling normalcy, Andy intends to adopt his sister Piper when he turns 18, and Mia basically became an honorary member of her best friend's family. Andy and Piper end up at the foster home of Laura, and Mia isolates herself from her father, with the two barely having a relationship even 2 years after her mother's passing. Like I said with Bring Her Back's title, Talk to Me basically spells it out right away. There's this porcelain hand, and when the user lights a candle and holds the hand and says talk to me, they'll see a spirit. When they say I let you in, the spirit enters them, providing the user with some sort of crazy high they just can't get enough of. The catch? So long as the user holds the hand, the spirit stays inside. If you hold on for more than 90 seconds, they'll want to keep you, and if you die while they're inside, they'll have you forever. Beyond the kind of twist that it was never Mia's mom that she was talking to, and that she actually ends up killing or almost killing her father, there's not much to really keep you guessing. The pacing of Talk to Me is pretty breakneck though, and I never once feel bored during its entire runtime. Though it's very infrequent, the violence is quite shocking and graphic, especially the sequences when Riley is possessed. As the story unfolds, Mia falls further and further under the influence and into the darkness as a spirit pretends to be her mother and persuades her to finish Riley off so they can have him forever. However, I will add that after numerous rewatches, I still do feel that Talk to Me sort of starts to fall off in its third act by leaning too heavily into generic supernatural horror tropes. Bring Her Back shows its hand pretty early on, and then it becomes more about how do we get there. Laura came into possession of some tapes that show a soul transfer ritual. Ollie is a kidnapped child who is host to a demon of some sort, and Laura is looking to resurrect her daughter, Kathy, inside of Piper through this vile and disgusting ritual. It just goes to show how far grief and sorrow can drive a person and the hurt people will forever feel when losing someone so important that they held so closely. There's some insanely dark and graphic stuff sprinkled throughout that'll most likely shake even some of the most seasoned horror vets. Both movies' endings are intensely morbid, like some of the most depressing movie endings I can think of. Bring Her Back ends with poor Andy being murdered by Laura via drowning in a muddy puddle. Laura lays curled up in the fetal position with her daughter's body in the backyard pool. Ollie regains control of his body, but the damage is already done, even if he is technically alive at the end. And though Piper survives, she's all alone, now having lost both her parents, her brother, and foster mother. Talk to Me ends with Mia all alone, her greatest fear. Earlier in the movie, she talks about a recurring nightmare she has, where she looks in a mirror and she doesn't see herself, like she's not even there. Everything is dark, no one can see or hear her, she's scared and alone. What leads to this is her almost putting Riley out of his misery by dumping him off onto a busy overpass before she either sacrifices herself when she realizes she's been tricked or she's pushed by Jade. It's unclear if Riley does make a full recovery and her dad survives like Mia sees in the end, but it does appear that she is now one of those lost spirits wandering around in the endless darkness, waiting for the metaphorical door to be opened by a candle and someone to reach out saying, "Talk to me." So yeah, a lot to cover. If I had to break it down into mini categories to help you decipher that verbal diarrhea, I would say Talk to Me has the better pacing. Both are about on par in their themes and messages, but Talk to Me acts as a stronger commentary on the current state of life for young people. Neither movie has too many twists or turns, and not a lot of subverting expectations, given that most of what you need to know is in the titles. But I would say that Bring Her Back has deeper mysteries and elements to speculate on with the tapes and circles. Bring Her Back also definitely has the edge in terms of outright brutal, cringe-inducing, and stomach-turning moments, while both movies have ridiculously bleak endings. I guess it depends on what storytelling elements hold the most value to you when you're deciding on who you feel should win this round. For me, though it's paced a bit slower and I really love everything Talk to Me has to say about social media and influencer culture, I simply found the mysteries woven throughout Bring Her Back to be far more engaging. The themes hit home for both, but Bring Her Back also shows the parent side of things that Talk to Me didn't. It's got some insanely gnarly surprises in it and has a multifaceted ending that gave me more to think about. So I'll have to give the 2-0 edge to Bring Her Back. For round 3, we're going to look at lead characters. In this round, we'll be focusing on the lead characters from each movie. As often happens when I do these movie versus movie videos, people sometimes have differing opinions as to what separates a lead or main character and a supporting character. But that's not what I'm really here to debate. As the one making the video, I have to use my best judgment to make a call, and here's what I ended up with. For Bring Her Back, I've decided to go with Piper, Andy, Laura, and Ollie, as I feel they all have pretty equal screen time and importance to the story. As for Talk to Me, I've actually gone with only Mia. I feel arguments can definitely be made for Riley and Jade, but at the end of the day, I feel everything in this movie is in service to Mia's story. It's her movie. It's important to note right out of the gate that this was Sora Wong's first ever acting gig, and she undeniably killed it as Piper. I thought she was so charming, likable, and relatable. Andy, played terrifically by Billy Barrett, becomes more and more layered as the movie goes on. He seems very shallow and surface level at first, but as we learn about his father's abuse and troubled past, I really grew connected to him. That being said, the two highlights are undoubtedly Sally Hawkins in my all-time favorite performance of hers as Laura, and Jonah Wren-Phillips, who freaking shines as Ollie. I mean, the stuff this kid had to do to get the shots that they got, the makeup, the blank expressions, my god, he killed it. Though Talk to Me only brings one competitor to the arena, she is a mighty one, as Sophie Wilde delivered one of my favorite lead performances in a horror movie ever. As the movie progresses and Mia falls deeper into the darkness, Sophie Wilde gets ample opportunity to really flex her acting muscles, and she delivers for every single second of screen time she gets. This round is surprisingly tough. When you have to compare not only the characters themselves, but the actors' performances, it's not easy. You have my favorite Sally Hawkins role, a newcomer who shines, a young gun who becomes more nuanced as the movie goes, and a kid who delivers both physically and emotionally. On the other hand, you have Sophie Wilde gifting us with one of my favorite lead performances in a horror movie, and in a lot of ways, carrying the entire movie on her shoulders by herself. It's so close, but I think I might give the slight edge to Talk to Me. Round 4 is going to be the supporting characters. Just like the last round, I'll be looking at the characters and actors' performances here. Bring Her Back is actually quite isolated and doesn't really have many supporting characters at all. Given how secluded Laura's home is and that most of the movie takes place there, we don't really meet many other people. We meet Wendy the social worker and get 2 scenes with Andy and Piper's dad. One where he's naked and dead in the shower, and another where he's a ghost thing. Talk to Me, on the other hand, has the other main kids, Haley, Joss, and Daniel, plus Mia's dad and her deceased mom, and the best of them, Sue, played by the brilliant Miranda Otto. You could also throw Riley and Jade in here too, in my humble opinion, because like I said in the last round, this is very much so Mia's movie, so I wouldn't say they're lead characters. Let's be honest though, this round isn't even remotely close. Talk to Me only needed Miranda Otto to win me over because I think she's fantastic in this movie. Haley, Joss, and Daniel are all fine, Riley's actor is unbelievable in those possession scenes, and Jade is also just fine to me. Bring Her Back just simply has nothing to fight back with, so this round goes to Talk to Me, bringing us to a 2-2 tie. Round 5, Direction, Cinematography, Editing, and Stunt Work. This round primarily focuses on the direction, but of course that comes in many different forms and styles. It includes the work of the Philippous, the cinematographer, the editors, and the stunt coordinators / choreographers, if that's applicable. Given that both of these movies are directed by the same twin duo of Danny and Michael Philippou, things get a bit trickier. So it's really going to come down to which movie I feel exudes their particular style more, as in which they had more creative freedom in making, and the strength of the other categories. The other categories are also tricky because it's probably good to know that both movies have the same director of photography, Aaron McCliskey, and editor Jeff Lamb. Starting with Bring Her Back, I don't think it would be hard to tell for people who grew up watching the Philippous as RackaRacka on YouTube that they definitely dug into their roots a bit deeper with their sophomore effort. Back in the day, they were primarily known for their insane, over-the-top violence and crude humor. That feels very present in Bring Her Back. A regular criticism for Talk to Me is that audiences felt they never really let loose outside of a scene or two that are a bit more graphic. They seemingly took that to heart with this one by including some extremely messed up stuff. I also found the cinematography here to be more unique. Despite the fact that much of the movie is isolated to Laura's home, it felt like they made more of an effort to hide things in plain sight, while also cleverly diverting our attention when need be. Circles appear often throughout the movie, hints of what's really going on, and then of course the tapes, which are insanely messed up. The physicality this movie boasts as well deserves a huge shout out, whether it's one of the many scenes with Ollie or the altercation between Piper and Laura. Talk to Me has some wicked camera work where you often get a real sense of momentum shifting and truly feel the impact of the hits. They are also very clever when hiding spirits around the frame, which helps keep rewatches fun, and the movement coaches, choreographers, or whoever really went off when it came to the possession sequences. Props to the actors too, who truly gave it their all when flailing or contorting their bodies in strange and unnatural ways. Especially Riley's actor, Joe Bird, during his two intense and shocking possession scenes. Though much of the Philippou signature style is woven throughout Talk to Me, it feels like the back half sort of becomes all too familiar for horror fans. Both movies are well edited and well shot, with impeccable stunt work and choreography. For me, I really do feel like Danny and Michael were allowed to let loose more with Bring Her Back when you include the grimy tapes, a lot of breathtaking shots, and the many hidden details. I think I'll have to side with Bring Her Back here. Round 6. Aesthetic, Style, and Visuals. In this round, we take the time to appreciate the work of the costume and set designers alongside the makeup and visual effects artists. I'm going to open the round by just flat out saying that Bring Her Back has a more memorable setting in Laura's house and plenty of costumes with flair. Many of Laura's fits and hairstyles are wholly unique, and then of course we have the purple knitted sweater that once belonged to Kathy before being gifted to Piper. Both movies boast insane practical effects and likely dozens of hidden VFX shots throughout. However, in terms of blood, gore, and body horror, Bring Her Back shows us way more, and in far more disturbing detail. That being said, both the possessed Ollie along with the possessed people in the tapes look excellent, as do the spirits of Talk to Me and the people who are possessed while holding the hand, with subtle changes around their mouths and eyes, to show when they're under the influence. And then of course everything with Riley too, which also gets some insane love in terms of the makeup and whatnot. Talk to Me has a very modern setting that takes us to numerous different locations, but none of them are all that unique. Plus there's nothing in terms of the costumes that had me wowed. However, I do freaking love that porcelain hand, and it has one of the scariest depictions of hell, or whatever that is, that I've ever seen. Though they're neck and neck when it comes to the practical effects, Bring Her Back's more unnerving scenes are more frequent and detailed. Plus, Laura's house and the surrounding property alongside her various outfits and that purple knit sweater all work together to give the edge to Bring Her Back. In this 7th round, we'll be looking at sound and music. Throughout this round, I'll be discussing the movie's score, soundtrack, sound design, and sound mixing. Both movies are composed by Cornell Wilczek and share a similar tone. Of course, there are key elements when listening to the OST that set them apart, but they're both very dreary and somber, with spikes of tension and dread. In terms of the licensed tracks, Talk to Me boasts a much more upbeat hip-hop vibe, while Bring Her Back has some classics and throwbacks during key scenes. Both movies have some truly superb sound design and sound mixing. Hearing Ollie chowing down on the knife in Bring Her Back will never leave my mind. The sound of Riley smashing his face and head during the scenes at the house and the hospital bathroom are crushing, gushy, and gross. Ollie eating the table also haunts my dreams, as does the sounds of the kids choking while becoming possessed as they hold onto the hand, or the many noises that come from the revolting spirits that the hand summons. And it's all blended perfectly with the music, score, and dialogue throughout, ensuring we never miss a word or beat. Though the knife scene in Bring Her Back alone makes me want to give the edge to that movie, I like the music in Talk to Me more, and the possession sequences, especially Riley's, tally together to give Talk to Me the round. For round 8, we'll be looking at the horror elements. I usually like to just call round 8 the wildcard round because it almost always changes from versus video to versus video. It's important to remember that everything in this video, like all art, is subjective. Whether we're talking about movies, TV, video games, whatever. It's up to the individual to decide what they like and don't like. But I feel this rings true especially so for this round, because horror fans can be, let's call it, passionate when it comes to what they feel is deemed scary or not. Talk to Me starts strong, opening with the ducat scene and then quickly taking us to the kangaroo scene and dropping us in front of the iconic hand, before showing us our first grotesque spirit. I think the midsection of the movie is the strongest portion, when everything with Riley happens and it begins to show us the uglier side of all this afterlife meddling. The last act, however, falls pretty flat for me. Outside of how terrifying I think the ending is, because, let's face it, being totally and completely alone in a never-ending pitch-black abyss is among everyone's greatest fears. And this movie's depiction of hell, or whatever that place is, with all of the lost and vile spirits, is easily among the most nightmare-inducing I've ever seen. The last portion of the movie sort of morphs into a generic supernatural teen horror flick. To me, beyond its themes, which are still masterfully executed, it loses its edge and relies more on jump scares and shock value. All that said, Bring Her Back is simply way more fucked up. And I don't say that lightly, because I almost never swear on my channel, knowing that YouTube doesn't like it very much, but there's no beating around the bush here. This movie gets mean, ugly, nasty, and downright unforgiving at times. Whether it's basically anything with the possessed Ollie, Laura's entire plan, everything we see in the tapes, Andy's fate, it's all horrible, but in the best way for this kind of movie. I think there's like one jump scare in here, maybe two, meaning it doesn't rely on cheap shit like that at all. Instead, it lets the messed up stuff speak for itself, without the need to play screeching loud audio cues. None of it feels forced to me. It all serves a purpose to the story to show how far Laura is pushing things to get her daughter back so she doesn't have to grieve or mourn. It's incredibly tragic and perfectly delivered while remaining consistently horrifying and gruesome. Like I said, Bring Her Back is simply way more... you get the point. And so does Bring Her Back for this round. In our 9th and final round, we're going to cover memorability, originality, and uniqueness. Just like both of these movies, it's right there in the title. Which of these do I find to be more original, more unique, and all around more memorable? Though both movies explore themes that are common in the horror genre, they do it in a way that most of us have never seen before. When working our way through these movies, there's no denying that the Philippous tried their damnedest to give us something we haven't seen before. The entire concept for both of these movies is something so different to other similar movies in the genre. So neither is short on uniqueness or originality, and that means that it comes down to memorability for me personally. Talk to Me starts off incredibly strong. Again, we kick off with the ducat stuff and the obvious commentary on the social media generation, before we meet Mia and go from there. When the hand is introduced and how everything works, it was like a breath of fresh air, and yet another shot of adrenaline for the genre, which has been soaring these last few years. I mean, us horror fans have been eating good lately. With that in mind though, and I've said it a few times already, but my biggest gripe with this movie is that the last half hour or so just feels all too familiar. Our main character starts seeing spirits everywhere, being controlled, acting erratic, and so on. It feels like any other movie from the same territory, like Smile, Truth or Dare, and so on. Bring Her Back starts off unique and continues to feel original throughout its entire runtime, right down to the bitter end. It could have been a generic cult or possession movie, but it had more mysteries, sparked more questions, and had my stomach truly turned by the end. I mean, two of the people I went with said the movie felt like too much for them and had them feeling pretty queasy afterwards, even taking them a little while to get to bed that night because they felt they needed to chill out and do something a little less intense to wind them down. I never needed an ending explained video for Talk to Me. The only lingering questions I had were, was the hand actually a severed limb of a medium, and is there a matching opposite hand? that? But those are also questions I don't really need answered. Yes, there is a sequel on the way, but I'm hoping it doesn't fall victim to over-explaining, like many horror sequels do. Meanwhile, Bring Her Back offered so much more. Where did the tapes come from? Where did Laura get them? What do the circles mean or represent? And naturally, what comes next? Since Laura is seemingly still alive, as well as Ollie/Connor and Piper. What happened to the people in the tape? This dude's wife or whoever it was has apparently had her soul transferred to a new body, but how does she feel about that? Does it last? What about the people looking for the person whose body is now inhabited by someone else? I don't necessarily need these answered either, but I think there's much more worth exploring and more to discuss. Though I would like to note that there's plenty more to theorize on in general, since the Philippous have confirmed that these movies are connected in some way. Whether it's some sort of cinematic universe or not remains to be seen. But if this ritual is possible and the porcelain hand really works, what else is out there? Either way, I'm sure plenty of people are going to disagree with me on this one, since Talk to Me is so well reviewed and made almost $100 million at the box office. But I found Bring Her Back just gave me a lot more to talk and think about than Talk to Me ever did. As much as I love both movies, because I really and truly do, I'm going to give this final round to Bring Her Back, giving us a score of 6-3, meaning Bring Her Back takes home the crown in this showdown. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments below if you agree or disagree with my winner. While you're at it, don't forget to let me know who you would have picked to win each round and who your overall winner would have been. As a reminder, this is the revamped BAM2 movies, and it is your one-stop for everything movies. Be it versus videos like this one, video essays, top 10s, ranking videos, tier list videos, I have it all and so much more, along with your daily nerdy news wrap-ups. A series of shorts where I keep you up to date on everything movies, gaming, and TV related. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that little bell icon so you don't miss a thing. As always, folks, I thank you all so very much for watching. Stay happy, healthy, and safe out there. From myself and the rest of the BAM2 team, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time, and that's a wrap.